This is a poem by E E Cummings. You might think, how is this a poem? After all, poetry has always been something you can read, something you're meant to read in order to understand it, something written in meter, conveying meanings by beautifully weaving language and prose and verse. Even the most cryptic and unconventional examples of poetry usually have a structure that is readable. Take, for example, this poem by George Herbert called Easter Wings. This is an early unconventional concrete poem. Concrete meaning poetry that is arranged in a way which displays a shape or an image. The poem was printed sideways on side-by-side pages and arranged to resemble two sets of wings. Still, the poem can be read and is written in a specific meter. Its visual form simply supports the meaning and themes found within the poem itself. Buffalo Bills, another poem by Cummings, is also written with unusual form. In fact, Cummings' style of poetry used mostly idiosyncratic syntax or an unusual arrangement of words. Even from his early days at Harvard, he was attracted to poetry ignoring conventionality. Even so, most of Cummings' poems can, at the very least, be read without rearranging them entirely. His poem, The Sky Was, has a similar deconstructed syntax to this poem, but you can still read it as it was written. So how do you go about extracting meaning from a poem whose form seems in protest to being read at all? Actually, I think it wants to be read, existing with crypticity in order to make only the closest of examination an absolute necessity. Like a code waiting to be cracked, it entices a curiosity to explore every letter and every line in order to unlock the secrets it seems to hold. The odd syntax used by Cummings promises a depth of meaning which he considered mere vocabulary inadequate to convey. Cummings transcends literary definition of the words by ridding them of structure and imaginatively conceptualizing his meaning with the parts left over. Jacques Demarque says, "In this poem, words are like living beings. The strict sum of their meanings accounts for only the tiniest parts of their movements." The word movement being especially fitting for a poem so focused on the concept. The only way to really read the poem is by translating it into prose. By rearranging the letters into a single line, the literarily blurry poem begins to come into focus, and the meaning starts to become clearer. Now we can see that the word loneliness has been divided by the parenthetical phrase, "a leaf falls." So we know the theme of the poem, the concept of loneliness, and juxtaposed within that concept is a simple piece of narrative imagery, a single leaf falling. This imagery gives us an emotional definition to the concept. It represents loneliness in a very specific way: separation. A leaf is a part of a larger whole, the tree. When a leaf falls, it departs from many other leaves and is alone, floating down to the earth, becoming only itself, a part of no larger thing. Closely examining the form of the poem, there is a clear visual representation of a leaf's fluttering descent in lines 2, 3, and 4, with the shifting weight of consonants and vowels, ending on line 5 with 2 consonants, the heaviest line yet. It has been interpreted that Cummings means to say separation is the heart of loneliness, and it is considered a solemn reflection on the concept. A leaf also represents death or the end of a cycle, the change of seasons or decay, furthering the sorrowful tone. But when I examined this poem, there's a certain whispering from the depths of its meaning, beyond the solemn reflection and lamentation of loneliness wanting to be found, wanting to fulfill the promise made by its complex obscurity, that there is some hidden truth within it. That truth must go beyond the simple idea of loneliness. Robert Scott Root Bernstein descended into such depths of meaning, saying, "Knowing that Cummings often invented words, one can read just the letters after the parentheses, which form the word oneliness, the state of being one." Beneath the veil of what would be entirely a lamentation, I believe Cummings offers an almost hopeful undertone, a ponderous perspective, seeing deeper into the nature of loneliness. A leaf falls and becomes alone, yes. But more subtly, it becomes itself entirely, no longer a part of anything else, an individual, completely one. Cummings' use of the lowercase l resembling the number 1 and his isolation of the word one in its own line makes this emphasis on oneness an undeniable theme, impossible to ignore, yet so easy to miss. Cummings rewards the most determined reader who questions deeply every facet of his writing, just as the most determined person examines every facet of their emotions and is rewarded by finding truth. The poem is almost an invitation to seek meaning far deeper than we can fathom at first or even second glance. This doesn't mean the sorrow is not there or that it's not a sad poem. Ultimately, the leaf perishes alone, away from the larger thing which gave it life, beginning its cycle of death as soon as it departs. But it doesn't end there. It spends a short life being its own, then dissolves into the ground, becoming once again a part of a large whole. Once being created by the tree, then departing, then becoming a part of what created the tree, the earth. Perhaps this is a picture of the beliefs Cummings held about existence, humanity, and God. Perhaps he is suggesting that loneliness is a fluttering concept, ultimately a temporary passing between the great oneliness. Maybe such in-depth and beautiful complexity is why Richard S. Kennedy described this poem as the most delicately beautiful literary construct that Cummings ever created.